What's up YouTube? My name is Alexandra Talaki, also known as the Hot Blend. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to paint your nails using nail polish like a pro. I'll be walking you through some super common mistakes that trip a lot of people up, sharing easy tips and tricks to stop them from happening, and show you a few techniques so you can finally nail your polish application. This video is totally beginner friendly, but I'll also sprinkle in some pro tips along the way so you can level up your application without it feeling scary or overwhelming. Before we begin, I just want to quickly say a huge thank you to Essie for sponsoring today's video. But as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. I'll be focusing mainly on the nail polish application itself today, but something really important to keep in mind is nail prep. Think of it as setting up the perfect canvas. How well you prep your nails will affect how long your nail polish lasts and how the final result looks. If you want more details on nail prep, feel free to check out my nail reset video where I go through the steps along with gel application and shaping. Just to touch on base coats, I don't usually use one as I have a clear layer of builder gel on my natural nails sealed with a top coat. Think of it as my built-in base coat. But if you're applying polish directly onto natural nails, a base coat is definitely your best friend. It helps stop staining, especially with those darker shades, cuts down on chipping, and smooths ridges to help you to get that flawless finish. It's also worth noting that some polishes don't need a base coat at all, so always check what your brand recommends for best results. For me, I just dehydrate the nail with IPA or acetone and go straight into applying color. I've had polish last well over 2 weeks this way. If you want some extra grip, lightly buffing the top coat will give the color something to adhere to, much like prepping natural nails. No matter what you're working with, builder gel or natural nails, always finish your prep by cleansing with IPA or acetone. That way, the nails are totally clean, dehydrated, and ready for polish. I'm going to be using 3 different nail polishes to demonstrate some different techniques that you can use. Of course, you can use whichever brand you prefer or what's easiest to find. There's no one right choice. What really matters is understanding the subtle differences between polishes, since each has its own personality and consistency. Some techniques might work better with certain formulas, so I'll be breaking down the pros and cons as we go along to help you find what may work best for you. Let me share this game-changing technique I developed. I call it nail framing because you are literally framing the entire nail plate. The idea is simple. You outline the cuticle, side walls, and free edge first, then fill in the rest. It might take a little extra time up front, but trust me, it makes the whole application unbelievably smooth and easy. Plus, you save some serious time on the cleanup and corrections later, setting you up for a much cleaner, polished look. It's especially good for darker colors to reduce staining to the skin. I'm using Spiked with Style from Essie's Gel Couture range to show you the nail framing technique. This polish has what I like to call the perfect Goldilocks consistency. Not too thick, not too runny. It's just right. I'm gently pulling back the skin using my index finger to get closer to the edges. And I'm going to use a detailed nail art brush with a small bead of nail polish to outline the cuticle area in a crescent shape that perfectly follows the curve of the epinicium. I want to make the color look like it's almost growing out of the nail bed. If you happen to get polish on your skin or the framing around the cuticle feels too wide or uneven, don't worry, the cleanup is easy. Just grab a rounded brush dipped in acetone and gently tidy up the edges. Before you touch the skin, dab the brush on a lint-free wipe to remove the excess acetone. This little step is important. It stops the brush from dripping and flooding the area. Keep this cleanup step in mind as we will be using it again throughout the process. The whole point of this framing technique is to define the edges of the nail plate using just a little product. It makes the rest of the application easier and gives you that crisp, polished finish. When I'm painting around the sides, I gently pull the nail wall down with my index finger to get closer to the edges. I usually hold it for about 30 to 60 seconds after applying before letting the skin go. With polishes that have a medium to thicker consistency like this one, it's best to seal the free edge first before covering the rest of the nail. To do this, I'm using the side of the brush to gently sweep across the free edge in a floating motion, applying the polish as I go. This is called capping. It helps prevent chipping and can seriously extend the life of your manicure. It's best to do this step now because doing it later could result in a heavy edge, and not the type that's cool.
Oh, Maroon, I accidentally let go of my sidewall way too soon after applying polish. Silly me! Now the nail polish has pretty much stuck to my nail wall. It looks like a little bridge. What are you gonna do?
Let me show you. I'm going to use my cleanup method again, just like around the cuticles. I don't want to rub the polish into the skin, so instead, I'm sliding the tip of the brush gently along the nail wall to lift it away. Remember, don't press too hard here if you accidentally do this yourself. If you're wondering whether the nail framing would cause the outline to show up like a bump, once you apply the second layer of color and finish with your top coat, the line will blend out beautifully and look perfectly seamless. Next up, I'm covering the rest of the nail. Red is definitely one of the trickiest colors to work with, so consider this my extreme example. You want to hold your brush at a low angle to help spread the polish evenly. Try to float the polish gently over the nail plate. Avoid applying too much pressure or dragging the brush too hard. It should almost glide across the surface. Aim to keep this first layer just a bit thinner than your next coat. If you have longer nails like mine, you might run out of polish before you reach the other side, so lightly dip just the very tip of the brush into the bottle to pick up a small amount and finish covering the side with the polish. Normally, I'd paint my nails much faster and closer to me so I can see better, and I would use the 3-swipe method, which is basically what it says. You cover the nail plate in 3 swipes. It probably doesn't help that my hands are dangling in the air as I paint, so I end up doing more than 3 swipes here. Still, fewer swipes are better. It helps reduce those pesky imperfections. So, some things can go wrong, and we need to be real here. Most of us don't live in a fluff and dust-free world. Things can just happen which aren't in our control, so just do the best you can. If you have a minor dent or small fluff in the first layer of nail polish, it's totally okay as it's still fixable. Don't expect the first layer to be perfect straight away. The nail framing outline and any minor mistakes will be covered up by the second layer of color and top coat. But if the polish is totally smudged or there are very noticeable dust particles or dents in it, it's always best to start again and repaint the nail. Practice makes perfect! So now I'm applying the second layer. And what happens if I accidentally apply too much polish and it floods the edges of the skin, especially when using a super pigmented red color? Let me show you. If the polish has flooded onto the skin, you can't fully avoid it causing some slight staining. The best way to deal with excess nail polish is to first clean up the bulk of the product so it doesn't set and drag, so I'm going in with my round brush again. Dab your acetone soaked brush on a lint-free wipe like we did before, then use the tip of the brush to gently swipe horizontally. If there's a lot of excess, you can clean up until midway and then go again cleaning up the other half. Or if it's not too bad, you can go across the whole edge like I'm doing if you can manage not dragging the polish too much. Once the bulk is cleaned up, you'll have plenty of time to go around and perfect those borders. I'm going to repeat this step again, but this time I'm going to show you the correct way of applying the second layer. So let's go back in time. To be time efficient, I apply the first layer on my thumb, then use that drying time to frame the rest of my nails, making sure the free edge is covered. Now that the nail polish is fully dried, I can comfortably apply pressure and swipe the nail without smudging. Before we begin the second layer, let's talk about this physics hack. When the nail is upright, gravity encourages polish to flood the cuticle. Painting sideways or with your nail tips facing downward on the other fingers works with gravity instead of against it. The result is a smoother sweep and far less risk of cuticle flooding. The second layer can be a little tricky because I'll be loading my brush up with a generous amount of product, making sure it's enough to cover the whole nail without having to go back to the bottle. I'm turning my thumb horizontally so the nail plate is facing up, resting it on my index finger for stability, and I'll use even less pressure than the first layer to float the polish over the nail plate. If I do need to fix a spot, I use a very light feathering motion so I don't pull on the layer underneath. Try not to wait too long, as nail polish isn't as forgiving as UV gel when it comes to working time. If the polish starts drying, it will just smudge and drag. If you accidentally create a patch, don't keep brushing over it. If the spot is minor, just let it dry fully and fix it with a thin third layer. But if the nail polish has majorly clumped or dragged and is genuinely unfixable, it's better to remove it and start that nail over. Practice makes perfect! While the thumb is drying, I'm going to paint the first layer on the rest of my nails. The polish hasn't flooded my cuticles or side walls, and it looks really good. As I mentioned earlier, the second layer is going to really solidify the color and help blend out any imperfections. I wanted to pause for a minute and show you another useful nail hack from the nail framing technique that you can use on slightly outgrown nails. I'm using a sheer pink color in this Instagram video, and I'm actually using nail polish to do kind of an infill. This can be quite useful if you love getting your nails done but don't like that in-between period where the gap becomes visible, but it's not quite time for a fresh set or a proper gel infill. The nail polish can easily be removed afterwards in any case, so if your nail tech is busy and can't squeeze you in, or if you do your own nails at home and you're in a pinch for time, it's just a little trick to get you by in the meantime. And here I'm showing some older footage where I use a darker brown. You can see just how messy my lines were. I hadn't thought about refining the outlines to make that clean crescent shape around the cuticle area as yet, but this is actually quite important as it helps to blend it in with the other layers better. I used to just draw a line, any line by the looks of it. Then I started doing the cuticle crescent and framing the entire nail, as I saw how much better the finished look was and how much time could be saved by doing it this way. I always struggle to get really close to the edges with nail polish, as it's runnier than gel and harder to get right the first time, so this made things a lot easier for me. I used to think that others were just naturally better, and it's easy to watch a 30 to 40 second video and think, yeah, I can do that easily. I'm guilty of doing it myself. I wanted to be totally transparent with you because it's too easy to compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10, especially these days with things like social media and in a world where people ask for something today and wanted results yesterday. Brush control as well as application takes time to perfect, so don't let yourself feel discouraged if you're not getting flawless results instantly, because it most likely won't be the case unless you are like abnormally super talented. It works better for me when I take a more relaxed approach towards it, so I always try to make a night out of doing my nails. It's all about the experience. It shouldn't feel stressful at all, and believe me when I say it will all be worth it when you start seeing those improvements. Anyway, back to the video. As I'm going through each step, it's taking me longer than it usually would in reality, so let's assume that I have applied the nail framing, the first coat of color, and I just finished applying the second coat of color on my nails. So now I'm applying my top coat. Two of my most frequently asked questions is about quick drying drops and the ice plunge. Does it really work? What does it do? Let me call our trusted chemist to help explain this with a quick science lesson. Hello? Hi, Dr. Alexandra von Athel? This is the hot blend. Oh, hello, darling. Oh, hello. I am just sitting here with my friends and we were wondering if you could give us a short lesson on how quick drying drops and ice plunges work. I would love to. Science and beauty are essentially the same thing, aren't they? To speed up the dry, first you have to know the why. You see, nail polish is a mocktail of pigments for the visible beauty, polymers for strength and structure, and solvents to keep it liquid for application. For polish to set, those solvents have to evaporate and they usually like to take their sweet atomic time. But now for the magic. Quick dry drops of volatile silicones. Think of silicone like an impatient big sister. The second she storms onto the scene, she grabs those slow-moving solvents by the hand and drags them to the surface to evaporate instantly. Then poof, she disappears into thin air, away with the fairies. Oh, I see. But why wouldn't you apply the quick drying drops after the top coat and then do the ice sponge to dry everything in one go? Wouldn't that be quicker? Oh, darling, you can't have both at once. It's a total clash of chemistry. Remember, the drops have to evaporate to work. If you dunk your hands in ice immediately, you're essentially trying to bake and freeze your cake at the same time. The water creates a barrier that traps the solvents inside, and you'll end up with a soft-boiled egg. A surface that feels hard because of the cold, but is a total liquid mush underneath. If you want perfection, you have to choose your method wisely. First, there's the basic ice plunge. This shocks the polymers to prevent dents, but you must wait 3 to 5 minutes. Otherwise, the water makes the shine go dull. It's a quick fix, but because it locks those doors, the layers underneath take even longer to dry. Actually, my granny taught me this trick. She just used whatever she had to hand, darling. Next, there's what I understand you like to call the express exit, where you put drops on your top coat. This is actually the easiest way for beginners, and I can see this is the technique you're showing in your video right now. But Big Sister can sometimes be bossy here too. The weight of the drops can disturb the wet surface of the top coat, leaving it cloudy or fuzzy. It's the quickest but not without risk, and no amount of washing can fix it if this happens. Finally, if you want the couture cure, which is the way you do it, you apply the drops to the second coat of color. Let the silicone escort the solvents out from that thickest layer before the top coat goes on. Just be sure to use a lint-free wipe afterwards to clear the oily residue so the next layer doesn't slip. Once your top coat has vented for around 5 minutes, you can do the ice sponge like Granny told me. No cloudiness, just a deep, crystal clear shine. This way takes a little longer, but perfection takes time, darling. Thank you so much for this. Minden nap tanulunk valami újat. Wow, we learn something new every day. Beszélünk később, Dr. Von Ethel. You're welcome, darling. Anytime. Beszélünk később. Speak soon. Bye. And with that, we've completed the nail framing part, technique, segment, thing. I'll leave timestamps in the description, and if there's something I haven't covered by the end of the video, leave a comment for me to have a look. Be sure to go back and review anything you're still not sure about before moving on. I did have to pause filming for a minute, so as you can see, there is a bit of a makeup and outfit change going on. I think this is a nice look. It's quite girly and cute, like the nails we are going to be doing. Okay, so up next, I'm going to show you the push polish method using a nail polish with a slightly thinner, more fluid consistency. I'm going to be using Gris Dior from the Dior Vernis range. Medium to thicker polishes can last up to 2 weeks if you take care of them, but this one usually sticks around for 5 to 7 days. I don't mind it though, because I love working with it and the color range is super chic. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what you're looking for in a polish. I'm starting by capping the free edge. Even though we are using a different technique, capping is still important. It helps reduce chipping and keeps the edge looking clean. The reason I'm not using a detailed nail art brush to frame the entire nail first is because this polish is slightly runnier and moves super easily, so it's easier to get it into place right away. But you can still go ahead and frame the nail if you wanted to. For this technique, product control is key. I like to swipe one half of the brush clean and also the very tip of the other side. This way, you get just the right amount of product to spread around the cuticles. I like to dab the brush just a little away from the cuticles first. If I have too much product when I dab the brush onto the nails, I use the clean side of the brush to push the polish towards the eponychium or cuticle area, and then slide the excess towards the free edge. I'm turning the brush around so now I can comfortably spread the polish evenly at the cuticle area, and the excess nail polish that could have flooded the cuticle is now smoothed out. This helps to prevent the polish from drying in a bulky or patchy way, and it makes the push polish technique way easier to pull off. Or should we say, push off? To get that crisp, straight line at the cuticle, I press down just a bit to fan out the bristles, then gently push and pull a little to guide the polish into place. The thinner formula and this brush means that I can go over the same spot a few times without worrying. It's super forgiving and helps get the polish spread out quite nicely. When you're working on your nails, especially when using the non-dominant hand, I recommend laying the other hand flat on the table instead of holding it upright. Place your wrist on the surface so you can slide the brush easier as you work on each nail. After years of doing my own nails, I can now use my left hand as well as my right. Well, almost. But this trick was a total game changer for control and cleaner results when I started. So now I'm applying the second layer. If the nail does slightly flood, remember you can easily clean it up with acetone and a round brush. Don't forget to dab. After the second coat of color, I move on to the top coat, and this one doesn't need much polish at all to cover the nail, so I wipe one side of the brush off completely, and that's still usually enough to cover the nail in one go. This polish dries way faster between coats. I usually wait about 5 minutes and skip the quick dry drops or ice plunge altogether. Remember to feather it out and keep the pressure light, or you can end up with brush strokes in the color. You can totally practice the push polish method right in the middle of your nail, and honestly, it's the fastest way to get the hang of it. Experiment with different amounts of polish, angles, pressure, and movements. Getting hands-on like this helps you figure out what works and why, making it much easier to achieve those perfect results at the cuticle area. And that's the push polish technique done. For the final part of this video, I'm taking on another super tricky shade, Pastel. Ooh. Light colors, no matter the brand or formula, can be super unforgiving. Product and pressure control will be really important to pay attention to. Any little mistake or imperfection shows up right away looking all streaky, and just thinking about it gives me the heebie-jeebies. But super rewarding when you get it right. I'll be using OPI's Pretty Pink Perseveres. What a fitting name. This formula has a slightly thicker, almost creamy consistency compared to the other polishes that we've used. Honestly, I thought this one would give me at least a fighting chance as it's well pigmented. So here's the plan. For my left thumb, I'm going to use the push polish technique to apply 2 thickish layers combined with quick dry drops and a top coat. And for my right thumb, I'm outlining my cuticles first using some of the skills we've learned from the nail framing technique, and I'll apply 3 thinner layers without quick dry drops or top coat to see which gives us a better result and which is faster. I'm starting off by using the push polish technique on my left thumb, and while I'm applying the polish, I'm keeping the brush at a low angle and I'm gently feathering the product using as few swipes as possible. My hands are still dangling in the air, so the 3-swipe method is quite difficult for me to do right now. I'm cleaning up any imperfections around the edges using the cleanup method we talked about earlier. I'm leaving this first layer to fully dry for about 5 to 10 minutes, and while it was drying, and with some internet magic, I outlined just the cuticle area on my right thumb, and the next step is to cover the rest of the nail. As I'm using less product because I decided to do 3 thinner layers, I am not expecting it to look perfect straight away. As you can see, it looks messier and patchier than the left thumb does because of the layer thickness, and I wasn't as careful with my application with my dangling hands, but I'm going to leave it to dry how it is. Now back to my left thumb, I'm going to apply the second coat as the first coat has fully dried. I'm using a generous amount of polish on my brush and I'm feathering the polish across the nail. I'm trying to avoid going over the same spots if I can, so I don't drag the polish, and I'm cleaning up mistakes where needed, taking my time to get it as perfect as possible. Now back to the right thumb, I'm painting the second thin coat. I want to see how the second layer will look when the first wasn't perfect in the first place. I'm keeping the brush at a low angle and I'm gently feathering the polish, getting close to the borders without really worrying if it floods the skin a little bit. It's not a red, so I'm not too concerned about this, and I'm just having some fun experimenting, but still I'm trying to keep the coverage fairly even. I'm going back and carefully cleaning up the edges until I'm happy, and I'm leaving the second layer to fully dry for about 5 to 10 minutes. I can still see a slight patch at the apex of the nail on the right thumb, which doesn't look too bad, but applying thinner layers probably didn't help the case. For the finishing touches, I'm going to apply top coat on the left thumb and a third layer of color on the right thumb without top coat. I'm wiping off one side of the brush completely and also the tip of the other side, as I don't want a thick layer. I am not using the eye sponge this time either, opting for the drying drops again to help speed up the drying process, and setting 5 and 10 minute timers to compare the drying times of the two thumbs. Thank you, Dr. Von Ethel. As I'm waiting for the left thumb to dry, I'm going to apply the third layer of color on the right thumb. And I'm not gonna lie, my heart was genuinely fluttering a bit as I was painting this. I needed a generous amount of polish for the final layer to blend it out, but not too much to cause it to become overly thick. And it's starting to streak. It already started setting and I wasn't quick enough. I have to stop myself from overdoing it. I guess it's the perfectionist side of me. I'm blaming my dangling hands and I am sticking to that story. I ended up doing a quick touch up on the edge to save it off camera and to have my hands in a better position. I find it so much easier to clean around the nails than having to risk going over the same spot just to get closer to the edges. This is why nail framing is so useful, because I don't need to worry about the sides as much. Anyway, yay! It's done. Okay, both thumbs are fully dried and this is the finished look. I didn't manage to get as close as I would have liked on the left thumb, and I can see a small outline between the second layer and the top coat, but I'm not mad at it. And honestly, if anyone is close enough to notice, they are way too close. Like, stop crowding me, bro. I'm quite happy with both, but to be fair, maybe the right thumb looks a bit nicer overall. In hindsight, I did flood the sides a little bit more to get this finish, so it's give and take. So at the 5 minute mark, the left thumb already felt touch dry, but the right thumb was still sticky. And at the 10 minute mark, the right thumb finally felt touch dry. I was already able to comfortably swipe the left thumb without a mark, but I couldn't do the same on the right. Well, there you go. The quick dry drops really do work. Who would have guessed? If you've got this far, you have officially nailed it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thank you so much for watching and for your time. Love you all so much, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!